back, and this is Green Mountain Mornings on WINQ AM Brattleboro. I am your host, Olga Peters, and I have in the studio this hour with me, Melanie Winters from The Reformer. Hello, Melanie.
Hello.
It's so great to have you in the studio.
Yes, it is.
I'm glad you could make the ride this morning. And I also want to remind listeners that this segment of Green Mountain Mornings is being filmed by BCTV. It will be online later today. And our broadcast of Green Mountain Mornings tonight is sponsored by Brattleboro Savings and Loan. Melanie.
Yes.
Let's talk quickly about should we call it the Great Latch-On?
Yes, and it's all part of National Breastfeeding Month to bring more awareness to not just the nutritional benefits, but also the emotional benefits of breastfeeding, and trying to reduce some of the, I don't know about, it's not necessarily stigma, but just some of the negative thoughts that people have about breastfeeding. You know, oh, it's a sexual thing. No, it's not a sexual thing. It's a natural feeding the baby and bonding with the baby. There is nothing sexual about it. You know, so this is great to bring awareness and just normalize it.
Right, and this was sponsored by the Vermont Department of Health, if I remember correctly. Yes. Yeah, I had the Vermont Department of Health in the studio last week, and this is one of the things they talked about, and it's interesting because it left me kind of thinking about some of the cultural norms, quote unquote, around breastfeeding.
Yes.
And it's really interesting. It should be something that is so simple, and yet it's kind of loaded.
Yes, yes. Well, it seems to be a phenomena in this country. If you go to other countries, it's perfectly normal. They don't have this hang up that Americans seem to have.
I wonder why we do.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's our Puritan ancestors. Who knows?
Oh, that could be. They put a lot of stakes in the ground. Those Puritan ancestors.
I just remember my mother telling me that she had wanted to breastfeed her kids, and she was ostracized by her mother-in-law. Oh, that's for animals. You know, breastfeeding is for animals.
Wow.
Kind of thing. And so, you know, she had a lot of issues to deal with that, and she had trouble herself breastfeeding. Something about her nipples weren't quite, I don't know, the flow wasn't quite right or something.
Yeah.
And so, you know, she had that, and then she had people telling her that it was wrong, and you know, so she was very proud of me when I was able to. She was thrilled that I was able to breastfeed my sons, and thought that it was great, and she's proud of the fact that she was kind of avant-garde back in the 60s.
Right.
You know, that was an avant-garde thing to do, you know, and now it's normal, or at least more normal than it was when she was a young mother. You
know, it just never ceases to amaze me, the stuff we put on women in general, but mothers specifically. It's this you should - shouldn't - be perfect - we're going to make it impossible for you to be perfect.
Yes.
Well, I am so glad that the Vermont Department of Health is out there talking about these things and about breastfeeding. And they do, if you go to their website, have a lot of information on the nutritional and emotional benefits of breastfeeding. We have to go to commercial break, but Melanie and I will return shortly, so stay tuned. We are back, and this is Green Mountain Mornings on 100.3 FM AM 1490, 21 minutes past the top of the hour, and I'm your host, Olga Peters, and welcome back to Melanie Winters from The Reformer. Thank you for being here. There are some changes afoot to an organization in downtown. Strolling of the Heifers is looking for a new executive director.
Yes, they are.
And it seems like a bit of a change because Orly is one of the founders. Orly Munzing, for those who don't know, she's one of the founders of Strolling of the Heifers, longtime face in the community. And what are some of her reasons for
Well, first of all, when we first heard about this, somebody sent us a link to the ad.
Oh, the job ad.
The job ad.
Huh.
And so we were like, what's happening? Is Orly leaving? We hadn't heard anything about this. So we got in touch with Orly, and she said, no, I'm not going anywhere. She's just kind of taking a different role. more of a oversight and new projects and so forth. And I think I mean, she's great at organizing the stroll, and she's been doing a wonderful job all these years, but she's also more of a visionary too. I mean, that's what created Strolling of the Heifers, is her vision.
Yeah.
And expanding that into the Slow Living Summit and all of that. I mean, those were all her brainchilds. And so that's one of the things she excels at. And I look forward to seeing what else she comes up with, really.
So if I'm hearing you correctly, the new ED will kind of take over the nuts and bolts of running the organization, where she will take on the bigger picture,
Yes.
bigger project kind
Yes.
of.
Yes.
Interesting.
So I'll be curious to see what she comes up with. 'Cause,
Yeah.
you know,
Well,
she-
and also who they can find to fill
to
those
fill her shoes. Those are
ED
pretty big shoes. Because it's not just organizing the stroll. And she's grounded here in this community. She knows everybody. Everybody knows her,
Yes.
So like I said, big shoes to fill.
Yeah, and just for those who don't know, along with we know the cow parade, of course, but Strolling of the Heifers is also Wyndham Grows, which is a business incubator entrepreneur program, and the farm to
Plate.
farm to plate.
And they do apprenticeship.
Apprenticeship, thank you.
Yes.
That was the word I was looking for.
Yes.
So there's lots of other projects under that umbrella of Strolling of the Heifers. Speaking of organizations taking on projects, there has been a demolition of a burnt building in Bellows Falls,
Yep.
which burned down, I believe, a year ago.
Just over a year ago. I think it was in March
Okay.
of 2017. But it was an eyesore before that, from what I understand.
Oh,
They had
okay.
a lot of complaints even before the fire.
Oh, interesting.
And, of course, even worse, since the fire, you have this gutted building for over a year. I mean, talk about blight,
And was it sitting there for a year because it had to go through some kind of court process or town process?
Well, the owner, actually, right before the fire, was in the process of transferring ownership to the town because he was having financial difficulties.
Okay.
And then the fire hit, and, that created a whole bunch of red tape.
Right. Right.
I don't understand all the red tape or the details of all of that, but I know how things work. Government
They move slowly sometimes. as
sometimes
wheels
for a
turn.
reason. I understand there was asbestos on the site and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I mean, they had to watch for contamination and everything, and make sure all the I's were dotted and the T's were crossed in terms of legalities. So because I mean, it's even worse if you do something wrong and it comes back to bite you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. Mitigation is something you want to take carefully when you're cleaning up a site like that. Now, but as I understand, the building next door to the one that's now being demolished is owned by the Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, or in the process.
They're in the
of
process. They were
becoming-
waiting for the demolition to go through before
Aha.
they closed on their deal.
Okay.
And they're looking to rehab that building for low-income housing.
And
I should say affordable housing, because
Okay.
low-income has a negative connotation.
yes,
So let's say affordable housing.
affordable housing, which we all need.
Yes. Regardless of your income.
Yes. And Vermont's not always good at that.
No.
And will the space that's being cleared by the house that's being demolished, will that become just a green space? Will a new building be put there? Or
We're not sure at this point.
Okay.
I know the school is nearby. I don't know if the school has some vision on what they might want to do with the property. I'm not sure at this point. That's definitely something we're going to have to follow up on.
And the project for Wyndham Windsor Housing Trust, do we know yet how many units or anything like that? Or
I think I can review here.
yes, I love that you brought the paper with you.
I think they said something about 5 units, maybe somewhere in that area. It's not going to be a large amount, but somewhere in that area.
Hey, 5 new units of affordable housing, that can go a long way. Now, quickly, there was also up in Bellows Falls the 2 boards, the Rockingham board and the trustees for
Bellows Falls, yes.
just signed a letter of support to Amtrak.
Yes, they're concerned about suggestions or proposals to reduce funding for Amtrak
At the federal level?
at the federal level. Yes, and they're rail advocates, and so they want to make sure that Amtrak continues as a viable entity and an alternative to the cars that are clogging our roads and our airs and all that. So
Yeah, I found it interesting. I think it said in the Reformer article that Bellows Falls has seen an uptick in
yes,
ridership.
they have, and I was surprised by that.
Yeah, I was too,
actually.
because I guess Brattleboro has seen a little downturn,
Mm-hmm.
but the Bellows Falls stop is getting more people.
Yeah, it would be interesting to look into that a little further and see why. What's the difference there? Is Bellows Falls area doing something different? Is the need different? Is there more marketing? More awareness? I'm not sure, but yeah, that's an interesting thing.
It could also be with. This is just me wondering out loud. I have no proof on this, but I wonder with the new stations going in the Greenfield and Northampton area, if perhaps some folks here are heading south and parking their cars, where in
Okay.
Bellows Falls it's a little more isolated. So
that's a good point.
yeah,
Interesting. Yeah.
inquiring minds. And was this letter of support? Is it just a letter of support, or are we expecting any other kind of actions or results from it?
It's really just kind of a letter of support. It's they're trying to get mayors around the country to sign on to this. It really doesn't. I don't know if it carries any weight, but just putting it out there and saying there are people that do support this is better than no voice at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we shall see. It's so interesting with all the talk around improving our transportation. I remember someone telling me at one point how the Brattleboro's train station used to be quite the hub
Mm.
in like the 40s and 30s, 40s, 50s. And I wonder if we could, if Brattleboro's population hasn't changed that much, couldn't we support that same kind of
Yeah.
commuter hub? But
Well, you know
I
what?
don't know.
You just brought up an interesting point about perhaps a contributing factor to Brattleboro's ridership going down
Mm-hmm.
is the condition of the station
Mm.
and safety concerns.
Okay, good point.
Yeah. Yeah, because Brattleboro has a real problem all around that transportation area. With
Okay.
panhandling, with drugs, with crime, loitering.
Mm-hmm.
People just don't feel safe.
So they're opting to go to other
That
stations.
that could
if
very
they're-
well be a contributing factor.
Huh. Okay. Well, now that's definitely a spot to watch. Hello and welcome back to Green Mountain Mornings on 100.3 FM AM 1490. I'm your host, Olga Peters. 39 minutes past the top of the hour, and Melanie Winters, editor at The Reformer. Again, thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Now, there was one story that really touched you, or
Yes.
article in The Reformer recently, and it was about Kyle Gilbert, who is a local community member who died
In Iraq.
In Iraq, thank you.
August 6th, 2003.
Wow, that long ago.
Yeah, so the story came out on the 15th anniversary of his death.
Okay.
Yeah, on Monday.
What touched you about it?
Well, first of all, I come from a military family.
Mm-hmm.
All my grandfathers all served. My father served in Korea. I have an older brother who just recently retired as a full colonel, who has served so many places I can't even keep count. Iraq, Afghanistan, places I don't even know. He can't tell me because he was special forces and all that kind of stuff. So, and also, I mean, Kevin O'Connor wrote this story, and he's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
He's a brilliant writer,
He really
and
is.
it just brought tears to my eyes. Here's this kid who had this dream of serving his family, serving his country, excuse me, and went off to fight this war, and just was so concerned about being lost in the oblivion of history and nobody remembering. If something would have happened to him over there, nobody remembering him. Well, that didn't happen. People remember him. Of course, his parents remember him. Parents will never forget him. They will mourn his loss forever.
Yeah.
And that brought tears to my eyes just thinking about that because I have two sons.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole community rallied behind this and created this monument for him. And nobody's forgotten him,
Mm-hmm.
and it was heartbreaking. Part of the story was heartbreaking because there was some some vandalism recently near the memorial. I guess some flag burning or something like that. And the outrage was immediate in the community. Whoever did this doesn't know Kyle. They have no respect, and blah blah blah. And that also is heart wrenching. That somebody would this is a tribute to somebody's son.
Right.
This kid served his country, so made the ultimate sacrifice, and they're basically desecrating what is a memorial to him. And I just thought that was unconscionable. And that brought tears to my eyes. And just the whole thing about it. It was just very emotional and moving. Just the story and the way Kevin told it.
Yeah, it amazes me that it's been 15 years because it does still feel like yesterday that memorial was created.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm sure it feels like that for his parents, because I have sons, 11 and 12, and it feels like just yesterday I was holding them in my arms, breastfeeding them, and here they are taller than me now.
Man, you didn't get that brick on their head.
Yeah.
That's what my grandmother says. I'm going to put a brick on your head so you can't grow any taller.
Right.
At the memorial service to commemorate 15 years, were there any moments that stood out that Kevin recorded in the piece?
Obviously, just the emotional, the emotions that the parents were going through. I have this story here, page 5.
Oh, great photos.
Oh yeah, we have. It was a whole. The audience can't see the photo, but it was a whole, almost a parade, like a military style parade. Not the type that Donald Trump is talking about, but in reverence,
a respectful one,
right? A respectful one in reverence to somebody who passed, and it's just, the flags and the people in uniform and the whole line of cars, and really it's it was quite a moving tribute.
It's so interesting. I'm thinking about the vandalism you mentioned and how Kyle wanted to be remembered, and that's it. Something that's so fascinating, I think, about monuments. What's resonating with me right now is that for one person, it's just a symbol. But for another person, it's a human being that they were attached to.
Right.
A friend or a neighbor or a family member. And I guess that's one of the nuances about living in a small community is things can be so much more personal.
Yes.
Than we realize when we might be looking at it as just a symbol.
Right. There's a theory about the 6 degrees of separation. Everybody in the world is connected by 6 degrees separation. I think in a community like this, it's like 2 degrees.
Yeah.
Everybody knows everybody. A lot of people are related to each other, cousins, second cousins, or distant relatives, or longtime friends, and it really, when something affects one person in the community, it's not just that one person.
Well, thank you for highlighting that article for us. If folks haven't seen it, is it online at reformer.com?
Yes, it is. Or they can stop by the office and pick up a copy.
Thank you, Melanie. Well, there was a little bit of excitement also in the community earlier this week.
Yep.
A couple, was it sisters went tubing?
Sisters. It was in Dummerston. Our date line here says New Fame, but it was like right near the border, so
Okay.
Our reporter got confused. But it was in Dummerston, and I guess they went tubing, and with all the rain that we had, the water was really raging, and they lost control. One of them lost control, and she ended up on an island.
Oh, okay.
And so she was unhurt. She
Good.
was lucky, very, very lucky.
Yeah.
So, the rescue crew had to come out and save her and pull her back and everything. The water was so raging that the rescue guys couldn't get in a boat. They didn't want to risk getting in a boat. So they got a line or something like that and did their thing there. And but the reaction on our Facebook page was funny because a lot of people were saying, why would anybody go tubing when the water's that wild? That's kind of irresponsible, actually. And then somebody else commented, well, there were a lot of other tubers there. A lot of people tubing on flooded waters and such. And I was a kid. I grew up across the street from a semi-whitewater river, and
Okay.
I used to go tubing all the time. And I didn't necessarily go when it was brown and raging like that, but the higher the better.
Mm-hmm.
So I can understand the appeal.
Yeah, I used to do whitewater rafting and canoeing, and I can see the appeal of fast-moving water.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I guess that is a really good reminder to us that we tend to look at the nature out our back door as fairly harmless. But the fact is it is bigger than us.
I will credit the sisters. They did a buddy system.
Okay.
A lot of
Very
people will
smart.
go out on their own and can get into trouble, and there's nobody there to help them, but they observed the buddy system, and so it ended up with a happy ending.
Mm-hmm. And thank you to the rescue crew that
Yes,
came out.
absolutely. Always thank you to them.
They take on some big
Yes.
things, and we
Yes,
take it
they
for
do.
granted sometimes.
Yes.
Well, so Melanie, are you thinking of voting early ballot in the primary, or are you going to go to the polls on
I am
the
probably
14th?
going to go to the polls. I think early ballot, it's great for some people who maybe can't get to the polls. But for me, it's extra steps as opposed to just walking in on the day of and walking out again. I'm in Whitingham. It's a small town, so I'm in and out in just a couple minutes. To me, it seems like more of a process to go in, get the ballot, fill it out, and then mail it. It's just too many steps.
Yes.
I got too much going on.
I understand that. I was planning on going in on the primary, but it just occurred to me I might be on the automatic mail list for the town clerk's office. So I may have a
Oh.
ballot waiting for me in my post office box,
Oh.
which I haven't checked in like a week because it's usually just bills.
Right? Who wants to see that?
Who
That
wants
can
to
wait.
get those? I'll wait until payday and then I go get my mail.
Right.
So I'd better check that today.
Mm.
Naughty girl, naughty girl. Well, we were talking off air that one of the things I'm still struggling with actually is I don't know who I want to vote for in the gubernatorial primary because, I have some issues with how the Scott administration, and I say administration rather than Governor Scott because I see it as a whole working
Right.
body,
Right.
handled some of the big issues
Right.
and the loggerheads.
Right. I think he
had
did some
problems.
things right, but some things could have been better.
Right. And actually a lot of the things that he did, I can go either way on. I can see why he
Yeah.
made that choice.
Yeah.
And what I have trouble with was the, what really felt like between the administration and the legislature that there was a breakdown
Yeah.
of working together.
Yeah.
And we got that in
it
DC.
was the whole budget thing, and telling the school systems to cut spending by a certain amount, and then they did that, and then he came back and said that wasn't enough, but everything was already all in place, and kind of threw everybody for a loop.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
I feel he could have
Yeah.
done better on. At the same time, a lot of his challengers at this point haven't served in political
Right,
office.
they're not tested, so you don't know how they're going to do as a leader.
Yeah.
They may have some great ideas, but can they carry them out?
Yeah, how will they work?
And can they get
in a
others
team?
on board with their ideas? That's a key thing right there.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And since we've just had 2 sessions where the governor didn't do that very well, it's kind of like, no, we can't go there.
I mean, sometimes, having opposing sides is a good thing. You have the give and take, and hopefully they can meet somewhere in the middle. But a lot of times people get stubborn, and like we see in Washington, and nothing gets done.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's and with our short legislative session, we kind of can't monkey around.
Right.
I was about
right.
to say something else, and then I realized that the FCC wouldn't like that. But yeah, we can't mess around because we have that short time to get things passed.
Yes.
So yes, I will vote, but it's still a tough one. Now, in Whitingham, you don't have any contested races.
No, I was just thinking of that myself. There's quite a few in Brattleboro, in the Wyndham 1, Wyndham 2-1. There's like 3 different 2 House districts and a Senate district
Correct.
that are contested. But in Whitingham, nope.
Nothing. I'm in Dummerston, so I'm one of the contested districts. And I have to say, when it comes to that House race between Mike Maricki, Cindy Jerome, and Nader Hashim, there is a little spoiled for choice, which is kind of a nice problem to have.
Yeah.
Because they all have these really great strengths that they're bringing to the table. And what's the other house? So Valerie Stewart,
Valerie Stewart and
Emily
Kornheiser. Yes, Emily Kornheiser.
That's
yes.
that's the Wyndham.
That's the
one.
Wyndham.
Wyndham 2.
2-1, I think.
Which is essentially kind of West Brattleboro, parts of William Street, Western Avenue area. And then also, this is interesting. If I understand it correctly, the Guilford Vernon seat, which was held by Mike Hebert.
Yes.
Right now, the primary isn't contested, but there is, and so far, Sarah Coffey's the only kind of declared, quote unquote, candidate. But there is Patrick Gilligan.
Yeah.
Who is the write-in?
Trying to be a write-in, yes.
GOP.
He didn't get his paperwork filed in time, so he's trying to do the write-in. And he's actually being endorsed by, who's the other Republican from? Rich Morton.
I don't know.
Maybe it was Hebert that endorsed. No, it wasn't. There was somebody. Oh, I'm drawing a.
You're going to be driving to the office
and like it'll pop right in my head.
Shout out the name.
There's so many politicians to keep straight in my head. My apologies to everybody.
Right. So, but what's interesting is I don't think Patrick he'll be going up against Sarah as a write-in the general election, correct?
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So you still got time to kind of vet both those candidates.
Yeah, what we're doing now is we've been focusing on the primary races. We don't want to confuse people because we're already confused.
I know, right?
We're focusing on the primary races in our coverage, and then once the primaries are done, then we'll move on to the general election because we've had people actually call us and ask us, well, why aren't you writing about this race? Well, because there's no contested primary. So let's wait till after the primary, then we move on to the next step because there's so many moving parts. It's hard to keep it all straight. I mean, even for us that are doing this full time, I can imagine how confusing it must be for the average voter.
So I guess the voters who don't have contested primary races should feel somewhat grateful. A little bit.
Yeah, they'll have a break for now, but we'll be after them.
Come the general. Well, Melanie, it's wonderful having you on the show today.
Thank you. It was wonderful being here.
I look forward to 2 weeks when you will be back on.
Thank you.